Erling Haaland has scored just twice in his last 9 games for club and country, but more worrying than his goal return this season has been his overall game involvement. So we're here to break down if Haaland's general play is that bad and whether or not he actually needs to have this aspect of his game. Starting with the data, Haaland's had the fewest touches per 90 minutes of any player to have played over 500 Premier League minutes this season. His current touches per game figure is the 4th lowest since 2003-2004, with only Jamie Vardy and Jermaine Defoe having fewer touches than the Norwegian in a single Premier League campaign. However, this wasn't always the case. Haaland averaged 33.1 touches per game in his last season at Borussia Dortmund, before moving to Manchester City. But last season at Manchester City, he would end up finishing the campaign with just 2/3 of the touches he registered in the previous campaign at Dortmund. And since the 03-04 Premier League season, no player has managed a touches per goal total with a lower number than Haaland, last season and this season, with him scoring every 23 and 29 touches in back-to-back seasons. As discussed on Stick to Football, his goal scoring is off the scale, so these compromises can be made, bearing in mind that he's still averaging over a goal per game for City in the Premier League since he joined. And understanding Erling Haaland's role for City is pretty simple. He's there to occupy the last line, force the opposition's backline as deep as possible, craft your own opportunities, and make yourself a constant option in the box. Last season, 12 of his 29 league open play goals came within the 6-yard box, showing just how much he was playing as a poacher. However, this season, that strangely changed. He's only scored 3 of his 14 open play league goals from inside that area. So on our latest episode of Stick to Football, the panel covered just how much his back-to-goal game needs to improve, but with a couple of the hosts mentioning that it was a necessity for games when he doesn't have much overall involvement in the box.
I don't know what the big deal is. I give him praise every week. I give Man City praise, and I think he's an amazing striker, but his general play is that of a League Two player. And I'm glad you're not agreeing with me. I don't expect people to agree with me.
It's just harsh.
It's good.
The League Two comparison's harsh.
He didn't even go League One.
The thing is,
his general play, week in, week out, is nowhere near good enough.
He's not,
As a goal scorer and a striker, the best. And I said that. Jesus, people see this. What happens? People don't listen.
So when you say general play, you're talking about
his link-up play, the way he lays the ball off. Sometimes the options he gives his teammates, or the options he doesn't give them. As a striker and a goal scorer, the best in the world. Some of his other play is that as of a League Two player.
He's a great goal scorer. He's not a great player, I would say. I think there's sometimes there is a difference. I mean, would you agree with that, Rice? Or do you think there is a difference?
I think the critique is pretty on point. The only thing with it is mentioning the League Two, because that's what everybody remembers.
League Two's a pretty decent standard, isn't it?
Yeah, but the thing is,
he knows how to get the clicks.
If we're going to talk about...
I guarantee Pep, deep down, Pep's going to defend him, of course, but I guarantee Pep will sit with his staff and go, of course he's got to improve on this.
He has to.
The League Two stuff.
But this is what I'm going to say, as a striker, it's part of the you have to have. I think that when you look at him scoring, he's kind of clocking that level in respect of... When the guys have got time, they can play it through to him. He goes through, bam, he scores. But there's games like the one we saw against Arsenal, and the game, like even last year when they beat Arsenal 4-1, it was holding on him. He was able to deal with that. But when you're playing against that kind of calibre of defender, you have to do more to make sure that you can at least keep it.
However, the question has always been, for Manchester City as a team, do they genuinely need him to provide this dynamic front? Against the current top 6, Manchester City have only picked up 10 points in 8 games, with Erling Haaland only averaging 0.33 goals and assists per 90 minutes, which is a huge difference when you look at his per 90 return against the other 14 teams in the league, which is a whopping 1.32. So if he's not providing his stellar output in tougher games, then yes, he has to offer more in his general play. The problem is when comparing his data against the rest of the Premier League versus the current top 6, again he's having fewer overall touches, fewer touches in the box, fewer passes, and he's losing the ball on average even more. As the Stick to Football pundits argued, he will improve on this, and he has shown glimpses of good back-to-goal play. When Manchester City beat Arsenal 4-1 towards the back end of last season, Guardiola put faith in Haaland to be a traditional target man. He went directly long from the goalkeeper, got runners around him, and tasked the talisman with making the most out of these situations. In this game, he would grab a goal and 2 assists, attempting 24 passes, creating 3 chances and touching the ball 32 times, which is his most attempted passes, joint second most chances created, and 4th most touches in his Manchester City Premier League career. And despite Haaland's incredible goal returns so far, he has actually hit a rough patch in front of goal too. He's missed the most Premier League big chances this season with 30, which is already 4 greater than his 26 missed last season, with substantially less minutes played, and he's underperformed his expected goals tally, which is 23.6 in the league. This part of Haaland's game he has quite literally never struggled with. Since 2019, he hasn't had a single season where he's underperformed his expected goals figure until now, so it's no surprise that people have called for more. But boss Pep Guardiola doesn't seem concerned by this at all. In his own words, they were lacking verticality before Haaland. They become too side to side, always looking towards the wide players, especially when they played with a false 9. And in Pep's eyes, Haaland completely shifted this dynamic of Manchester City, and some even pointed to this aspect of Manchester City that give them the cutting edge and dynamism that push them on to finally win the Champions League. And even when he doesn't directly score, off the ball, Haaland's influence on this City team to be more vertical and more forward thinking is crystal clear. He has ridiculously good movement when it comes to creating goal scoring angles and opportunities for himself, but for others too. And his selfless movement for such a goal-hungry striker isn't talked about enough. With Phil Foden being called on to play much more of a central position this season, he's been arriving late into the box more frequently, and it's quite common that we can often see Haaland purposely dragging 2 defenders to open up the space for the others to arrive into. And Haaland himself has even touched on his selfless movement, by saying that if multiple people mark him tightly, it's okay because he can create space for others, and if they choose to mark the other players around him, then there's more space for him. So either way, Manchester City as a team win these moments, and that is all that Erling Haaland will be concerned about. And this idea from Manchester City to get someone in the central spaces to arrive in and around the space around Haaland surfaced last season after Manchester City's 2-1 loss to Brentford, where Haaland was completely halted. He had 5 touches in the box, 1 shot overall, and accumulated just 0.03 expected goals. On Monday Night Football, Bees defender Ben Mee elaborated on Thomas Frank's tactical setup by saying they weren't concerned when Haaland was receiving between the lines, and that himself and Ethan Pinnock were tasked with going 2v1 against him throughout the match. But with Guardiola adding more dynamite into the centre of the pitch and more late box runners in Foden, it's now almost impossible to focus solely on Haaland, because you now have multiple threats attacking them central spaces, and you can see through Foden's goal and assist maps in all competitions that the majority of his involvements are coming within the mouth of the goal. So even when he's not touching the ball, you best believe that he's affecting the game. So, do you think Erling Haaland must improve his all-around game, or do you believe his goal-scoring prowess is more than enough to compromise?